بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع سنته إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show, Guest of the Week, coming to you from Sharjah TV. And as always, I'm your host, Ismail Bullock. And today, inshallah, we want to talk about a very important topic, which is knowledge, and the status of knowledge and the status of the people of knowledge. And to do that with me today is Ustadh AbdulRahman Hassan. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair for coming on.
Jazakallah for having me.
Now, knowledge obviously in general is an important thing, whatever you may be acquiring knowledge for. We need knowledge just to live our daily lives. You need to learn how to drive a car, for example. So all of this is knowledge, but obviously the best of knowledge is Islamic knowledge. So today, inshallah, we're going to talk about, as I mentioned to the viewers, the importance of knowledge, the status of knowledge, possibly even how to seek knowledge, and the level it has in Islam and its people, the scholars, what they hold in Islam.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen Sayyidina wa Nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa tabi'ina lahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. Na'am, as you said, knowledge is not just restricted to, as some may think, Islamic knowledge. Even if you have academic, secular knowledge, you're not like a person who doesn't know. And one of the quotes that I came across, which was very powerful, that summarized the value and the status of knowledge, is a statement said by Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He said, كَفَى بِالْعِلْمِ شَرَفًا أَن يَدَّعِيهِ مَنْ لَا يُحْسِنُهُ. Enough virtue and status for knowledge is that the one who doesn't have it would want to claim it. And the one who is ignorant, who doesn't have knowledge, will be upset if he's told that he doesn't have knowledge. So everybody loves knowledge, the idea of knowledge, or being a person of knowledge. Everyone likes that. No one would be happy if they're called, you're ignorant. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He raised the status of those who know and those who have knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah raised the station of the believers, and within the believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He raised the station of the people of knowledge. He asks in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal asks us a question. He says to us subhanahu wa ta'ala, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Are they equal, the one who knows and the one who doesn't know? Are they the same? It's a rhetorical question. The answer is, of course not. How can they be? And before that, Allah says, أَمَّنْ هُوَ قَانِتٌ آنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ سَاجِدًا وَقَائِمًا يَحْذَرُ الْآخِرَةَ وَيَرْجُو رَحْمَةَ رَبِّهِ قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Before that, Allah mentioned that the one who wakes up at night and he prays and he remembers his Lord and he fears Allah Azza wa Jal. And then after that, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, are they equal, the one who knows and the one who doesn't know? Are they both the same? In other words, no, it can't be the same, because the one who knows is the one that's going to wake up and remember Allah.
Exactly. I was going to say that the point there is that this person, Allah's pointing out that these people, they have the real understanding, or they understand what reality is, because therefore they are the ones who worship their Lord and wake up in prayer.
نعم. ولذلك is in an ayah in the Quran in Surah Fatir, Allah says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The ones who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are no one else except the scholars. There's no one else who fears Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, just the scholars. As though no one else has khashya except the scholars. ولذلك some of the scholars, they said, how can we reconcile between the khashya that we see in other people? Scholars, they said that is khawf and not khashya. Then khashya means ta'zeem ma'al ilm. It means fear, so khawf ma'al ilm. It means fear with knowledge of who you're fearing. And that is called khashya. In other words, no one is conscious of Allah and is fearful of Him the way He deserves to be except the people of knowledge. And that itself shows you the status of the people of knowledge. Nabiullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was never commanded in the Quran, nowhere, to ask Allah to increase him in something except knowledge. Allah said to him subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. O Allah, say Muhammad, O Allah, increase me in knowledge. He wasn't told to ask for money. He wasn't told to ask for wealth and what children and what not. The only thing he was clearly instructed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to ask Allah to increase him in is what? Knowledge. ولذلك a poet once said, he said, ليس اليتيم من مات والده إن اليتيم يتيم العلم والأدب. That a person is not an orphan if he loses his mother and father. The true orphan is the one who has no knowledge and no manners. Those are your two parents. knowledge and manners. If you lose one of them, then you're losing a parent. And if you lose both of them, you're losing both your parents. So Nabiullah Muhammad ﷺ, the first verse that came down, the first ayah that came down in the Quran, he was instructed to what? Iqra, read.
No.
Read Muhammad, because of the value of knowledge and how high it is. And so, after a person gains knowledge and has understanding of Allah Azza wa Jalla, His names and attributes subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is conscious of Allah Azza wa Jalla, then and only then will the person gain a high station in Jannah. ولذلك الإمام أحمد narrated in his Musnad من حديث أبي درداء رضي الله تعالى عنه, that the Prophet ﷺ has said, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له طريقا إلى الجنة. The person who takes a path to gain knowledge, to attain knowledge, if you take a path in this world to attain knowledge, Allah will make for you subhanahu wa ta'ala the day of judgment the same path that you took in this world to seek knowledge. Allah will make exactly a path like that, but to Jannah this time.
So I mean, if you think about it, that is it should make all of us really, to whatever ability we can, at least to a minimal level, to try and seek that knowledge. Because, you know, as the hadith says, if you take that path to seek knowledge, Allah will make a path easy for you to Jannah.
Mm-hmm.
So who of us wouldn't want to, at least, even if it's once a week, attending a lesson of some kind, who wouldn't want to take advantage of that in reality?
It's true. Not to mention the fact that this knowledge is the inheritance of the Prophet ﷺ. If your father, for example, died, and you were going to inherit you will inherit his wealth, you wouldn't be missing from the gathering in which his inheritance is being given out. He's your father. It's your father. He's dead. He died. His wealth is a lot. All your brothers and sisters and everybody will be sitting there to take their portion of the wealth. You won't be missing from that gathering, because you're going to inherit great portion of it. If you're absent, you're not going to get that money. The scholars, they said that the Prophet ﷺ, what he left behind for this ummah is knowledge. إن العلماء ورثة الأنبياء وإن الأنبياء لم يورثوا درهما ولا دينارا وإنما ورثوا العلم فمن أخذه بحظ وافر. That what the Prophet left behind is this deen. And so you not taking this religion and not learning it is that you're missing out the inheritance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ولذلك, if you look at any part of our religion, those who Allah raises, even in this world, what did He say sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the salah? He said alayhi salatu wasallam, لِيَلِي, let it come closer to me. From amongst you, the front line, ulul ahlami wal nuha, those who have great knowledge. The ordinary people are not allowed to come to close to the Imam. What did the Prophet say in the Salah? فَلْيَأُمَّ أَقْرَأُكُمْ لِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ. Let the one who knows more of the Quran lead the prayer. Even if he's young, even if he's a son, he will lead his father, because he has more knowledge in the Quran than everyone else. So that's in this world. And we've seen it, how Allah raises a person who is of maybe no great background. He's not known. He's from a poor family. But because he's attained knowledge as it should be, you find that the people are coming to him, يَأْتُونَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. They come to him from everywhere. They want to see him, they want to sit with him, they want to take knowledge from him. Allah raised him subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the thing is, knowledge, as much as scholars have spoken about its virtue, scholars have written books about it. Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he wrote his kitab Jami' Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadli. Al-Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, Imam al-Mashriq, he wrote a kitab on it. Al-Imam al-Ajurri, he has a kitab called Kitab Akhlaq al-Ulama. And Ibn al-Qayyim, Kitab Miftahu Dar al-Sa'adah. Scholars have taken time out to speak about the virtue and the status of knowledge and its people. That being said, they've also mentioned in it the path and the way that a person should take in order to attain that knowledge. What is it that you need to do? What is it that you need to stay away from? Because if this virtue is great and this station is high, what is it that you need to do in order to attain that knowledge?
Something that comes to mind as well, before we go into that, is the fact that the emphasis on knowledge is so much so that what came to my mind now was, we know that Imam Bukhari did a chapter which he called the chapter of al-ilm qabl al-qawl wal-amal, that knowledge precedes or is before speech and action.
Sahih.
So this is showing us that we are supposed to seek the knowledge before we do even our actions, how to do them.
That's true.
And we find many people these days, they are spending their times on getting involved in politics, getting involved in debates, and getting involved in disputes between scholars, but they don't know how to make wudu properly, or they don't know the conditions of the prayer and what breaks the prayer. So it's very important that this knowledge is sought, just so that they can even do their daily worship, their daily ibadat, their daily worship, acts of worship correctly.
صحيح. نعم الإمام البخاري didn't just chapter a particular chapter but he wrote a whole book on it. رحمه الله. In his صحيح he called it كتاب العلم. And then within كتاب العلم he brings a chapter about العلم قبل القول والعمل. And he uses the ayah فَعَلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِهِ. What's very amazing is that, as you mentioned, it's very powerful, is that not knowing what type of knowledge that you need to start with. Scholars, they say that the ilm is two types. Ilm which is fardu kifai, meaning if a group of people come with it, not everybody else needs to know it. And there's a second type of knowledge which is fardu ayn, meaning it's an individual obligation. Everyone needs to know it. And Ibn al-Qayyim says in Miftah Dar al-Sa'ada, he calls it ilmul hal. The reason why he calls it ilmul hal is because it's something you need to know now. It's something that's connected to you now. You shouldn't be talking about a knowledge in which you will not be needing this current moment. This knowledge is not something you need. It's going to be tomorrow, maybe the next week.
So for example, someone shouldn't start studying the usul of tafsir, the principles of explaining the Quran, when he hasn't learned the fiqh of his tahara, the basics of his wudu, what breaks his wudu, what happens if there's no water, what happens if this, that, etc. This water that he's making wudu with, some flies came in it, is it pure, is it not pure? Things like that, that many people would actually turn around and say to you, oh no, if I find 10 flies in my water, it must be impure, because flies are dirty, but it's not impure. So little things like that. So if you realize now that you're sitting there looking at deep sciences of Islam, or like I said, studying, if you can call it that, the science of refuting and trying to work out which scholars, refuting this one and getting involved in these things, but you don't know the categories of water and what makes the water impure for you to make wudu in, then you know that your priorities are very far lost.
Very far lost. It's true. Wallah, it's a haqiqah. And it's na'am, it comes from not knowing التدرج في طلب العلم, not being able to go gradually in seeking knowledge. ولذلك الإمام محمد مرتضى الزبيدي has a kitab called ألفية السند. It's 1,000 lines in hadith. He says رحمه الله فما حوى الغايات في ألف السنة شخص فخذ من كل فن أحسن بحفظ متن جامع للراجح تأخذه على مفيد الناصح. In this he mentions that a person will not live 1,000 years and you'll never finish all knowledge. But what is it that you need to do is basically go for the books and the sciences and the things that you need that are vital for you in the best and the quickest way. ولذلك والله subhanallah, the Shanaqita from Mauritania, there are people who truly are respected for their knowledge and their grounding and how they really study systematically. When it even comes to memorization, when it comes to studying and learning, they're very classical in their studying. And they said, وَإِن تُرِدْ تَحْصِيلَ فَنٍ تَمِّمَهُ وَإِن تُرِدْ تَحْصِيلَ فَنٍ تَمِّمَهُ وَعَنْ سِوَاهُ قَبْلَ الْإِنْتِهَاءِ مَهُ. If you want to gain knowledge, don't open so much things together. Even when you mention the issue of tahara and you're studying tahara, don't speak about other things that don't concern you, even if you are studying tahara. Just fully focus on that. Give your mind to that. Why? Because they said, وإن تريد تحصيل فن تممه وعن سواه قبل الانتهاء مه وفي ترادف العلوم المنع جاء إن توأمان استبقا ليخرجا. They said if a mother wants to give birth to twins at the same time, she can't. She has to give birth to one, and then after a while another one. So they said knowledge is like that. No.
I'll just hold you on that point there, inshallah. Please join us after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, just before the break, we were obviously mentioning the importance of structuring the knowledge. And another thing that came to my mind is we know that the scholars, they say whoever tries to gain knowledge all at once will lose it all at once.
That's true.
So it's very important, and obviously you'll go into that, but it's important, as you mentioned, to focus on, which we'll discuss now inshallah, what kind of knowledge. You mentioned that the scholars, one of the, I forget which scholar it was, that mentioned that it's, I think it was maybe Ibn al-Qayyim, the knowledge is the knowledge of what is needed now. So for the average Muslim now who's watching this show, what should they ideally focus on? Should they be going into all these complicated things? Should they be getting involved in political things? Or what is the thing that the average Muslim of today should focus on when it comes to seeking knowledge?
It's true. It's what you're going to be asked the day of judgment. What are you going to be asked in your grave? There's three questions you're going to be asked. مَنْ رَبُّكَ وَمَا نَبِيُّكَ وَمَا دِينُكَ. Do you have answers for those 3 questions? You're not going to be asked about Allan and Fulan. You're not going to be asked about that. You're not going to be asked about all the trivial issues that you're looking at. You're going to be asked 3 simple questions. مَنْ رَبُّكَ وَمَا نَبِيُّكَ وَمَا دِينُكَ. Who's your Lord? Who's your Lord? You're going to be asked. You're also going to be asked about your religion. And you're going to also be asked about your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have to have answers for this. When you're asked about Allah, you need to know Him by His names and His attributes and who He is, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the same with Nabiullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of those people, if you ask them, what's the Prophet's name? Just tell me 2, 3 names of his. So a lot of them will not be able to tell you. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, let alone know his lineage, knowing when he was born, where he died, and information pertaining to that. ولذلك الشيخ محمد عبد الوهاب رحمه الله تعالى, he wrote a kitab on ثلاثة الأصول, just on these 3 questions. Fundamental kitab. Now every student of knowledge should have understanding of it. Also the person studying salah, the ahkam, and the salah, because it's the second pillar in al-Islam, tahara is a prerequisite of as-salah. So ولذلك the scholars, they say ما لا يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. Because you can't pray salah without tahara, then you would have to know about tahara. Because the salah is the most vital thing after the shahadatain, you need to know it. If you're a person who's reached high in your wealth and mashallah Allah has given you money, you need to know the zakat. If you want to go hajj, and that's something you need to know about hajj. Same with fasting. In the month of Ramadan is about to come. What are the mubtilat al-siyam? What are the things that break your fasting? And ahkams pertaining to that. So these are things which are ilmul hal. Scholars, what they did was, they wrote books on that, which they called mabadi, simple, basic books. Like for example, we were talking about before. For example, a person does, if he's a Hanbali, he follows kitab Akhtasar al-Mukhtasarat, he studies that until he gets up to the Zad al-Mustaqna'. If the person follows the Madhab al-Shafi'i, مثلا, he studies, for example, Matn Abi Shuja' until he goes up to Minhaj by Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, and then he goes like that. Studies what's very important for him, his day-to-day matters. Knowing the Quran and memorizing the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. My father used to say a lot, Man ضيع القرآن فلما سواه أضيع. If you forsake the Quran, then you're going to definitely forsake everything else. If you're going to memorize the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla first. So these are ilmul hal, a knowledge that you need at that moment. What's the benefit you knowing something and studying something that probably the chances of you coming into contact with this scenario or you actually come into an issue is very far-fetched. You're never going to probably see it. And I think the reason why many of those people are not going how knowledge should be sought is because the intention behind seeking knowledge is corrupt. ولذلك the poet, he said, فَلْتَقْصِدُ أَرْبَعَةً قَبْلَ ابْتِدَاءٍ تَعَلَّمْ لِكَيْ تَفُوزَ بِالْهُدَى أولها الخروج من ضلال والثاني نفع خلق ذي الجلال والثالث الإحياء للعلوم والرابع العمل للمعلوم. Anyone who wants to attain knowledge and wants to gain knowledge, there are 4 main reasons why you should gain knowledge. The first one is أولها الخروج من ضلال. You are learning knowledge to take yourself out of the ignorance that you're in. You're not doing it for anyone else. I don't want to be ignorant. أولها الخروج من ضلال والثاني نفع خلق ذي الجلال. The second one is you want to benefit the community and the people you're from. وثالث الإحياء للعلوم. Number 3 is to revive the knowledge. This knowledge is perishing, it's going, no one's studying it. Inheritance. Who's going out there studying inheritance? You're now going to go to those sciences that haven't been spoken about, that people have abandoned, you bring it back to life again. And the last one is وَالْعَمَلُ لِلْمَعْلُومِ, to implement it. These are 4 objectives and 4 aims in how or why a person should seek knowledge. If all those 4 that I mentioned is not there for you, so you're not learning knowledge for yourself, you're learning it maybe to show somebody else that they're wrong or prove a point, and you're going to research because that's what you want to do, then of course what you're going to study is all not going to be based upon ilmul hal, is it? It's all going to be based upon catch somebody out. So the intention and the motive and the reason. Also the person, the fact that they don't have a good heart. So they, even that though that they are seeking knowledge, Allah is just diverting them from what is beneficial for them. Allah doesn't want them to get it. As He said in the Quran, سَأَصْرِفُ عَنْ آيَاتِيَ الَّذِينَ يَتَكَبَّرُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. Allah says, I divert my verses from the hearts of those who are arrogant. ولذلك سهل بن عبد الله التستري, he said, حرام على قلب أن يدخله النور وفيه شيء مما يكرهه الله عز وجل. It's haram for knowledge to enter the heart of a person who in that heart prior to that is something Allah dislikes subhanahu wa ta'ala. It won't enter that heart. Allah won't give this nur to you when there's already in there filth and dirt and things that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset with. ولذلك الإمام الشافعي ودري say شكوت إلى وكيع بسوء حفظي فأرشدني إلى ترك المعاصي وقال إن العلم نور ونور الله لا يهدى لعاصٍ. He said, I went to Al-Imam al-Shafi'i when he complained to him. And he said, look, my memorization is going. I'm not like how I used to be. And then he said to him, this is light. And this light will not enter the heart of a person who's sinning, who's going against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands and disobeying Him subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And this was these kind of great scholars of the past, they were saying that to each other. Imagine our state.
It's so true. It's so true.
Now, obviously, you mentioned before the importance, and maybe we want to talk a bit about that before we go for the next few minutes before we have the next break, on the danger of having the knowledge and not acting upon it. And I remember a post I actually saw on one of the social media platforms just recently where a brother who had been to the Medina University and now I believe he went to Mauritania, like you meant, to the Shinqit area, and he was saying that he noticed in all the countries he's been, and he's been to a few others, studying knowledge, that he had some of the most highest achieving in the exams and memorizing, but he said they would sleep through Fajr on a daily basis. So this is something, again, where there is a disconnection between the knowledge and the implementation of the knowledge.
It's true. Wallahi, it's one of the haqa'iq, like a lot of the people, the knowledge that they're learning has become a hujjatun alayhi la lahum. It's become a proof against them, not for them. And the Prophet ﷺ used to seek refuge in Allah from this. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from a knowledge that doesn't benefit me.
And I believe some of the scholars, they actually even had statements that said that if you do not implement this knowledge, then in reality it's not knowledge.
It's true.
You could have memorized books upon books, but if there's no implementation, that's why you see sometimes people who will say, I'm a hafiz of Quran, or I have memorized Bukhari, but then he's every day committing sins, he doesn't pray. Then reality, that what is that memorization of Quran, or that memorization of the hadith? In theory, I don't like to say that because you memorize the word of Allah, but upon you it's almost become useless in the sense of you're not implementing it. So what is the point of you having all this Quran and all this hadith if it doesn't change you in any kind of way, really?
It's true. Allah created us for two reasons. There are two reasons Allah mentions in the Quran why He created us. The first one is to have knowledge, and the second one is actually to implement that knowledge. Allah said in the ayahs, the last ayah in Surah Al-Talaq, الله الذي خلق سبع سماوات ومن الأرض مثلهن يتنزل الأمر بينهن لتعلموا أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. لتعلموا. So Allah said, I created the seven heavens, the seven earths. What is in between it, meaning us? Why? لتعلموا, so you can know. So Allah created us so we have knowledge. The second reason why Allah created us is to implement that knowledge. Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah said, I did not create the jinn, nor did I create the ins, except to worship me. Worshipping Him is implementing the knowledge that you have gained regarding who Allah is, what's the rights that He has upon you. وَلِذَلِكَ, because of the fact that those are two reasons why He created you, He will not let you the Day of Judgment move from your position unless you answer this question.
And it reminds me of even of Surah Al-Asr when Allah talks about those who've been lost, and He says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Apart from those, all man, Allah swears by a time that all man will be at a state of loss or self-destruction, you could say, except those who believe and do righteous deeds. So there's always this thing of believing, and to believe you have to know. So again, it's the knowledge of the belief, the knowledge of Allah, but then has to be followed up by the implementation.
That's true.
You recognize Allah, you know who Allah is, therefore you have to worship Him.
That's
Otherwise,
true.
What is this? Many people, they know who Allah is, but they don't take that step of becoming a Muslim or of worshipping Allah their whole life. And they know that Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth, and they'll admit it to you. But if they don't not transfer, what's the word I'm looking for, convert that into actions, then in reality that knowledge is pretty useless.
It's proof against you. That's why I said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Day of Judgment, the hadith of Abi Barzat al-Aslami, Sunan al-Tirmidhi, The Prophet ﷺ said, لا تزول قدماء عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع. From the four questions that you're going to be asked is عن علمه فيما عمل فيه. The knowledge that you were given, what did you implement from it? ولذلك, because of that, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah, just based on this particular hadith, which is Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa', that hadith, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali wrote a kitab called Fadl ilm al-Salafi ala ilm al-Khalaf. The virtue of the knowledge of the Salaf over the Khalaf. Their knowledge wasn't just mere information. We've got information maybe, but they had knowledge. Why? Because they implemented what they knew. They executed it the minute they found out. And the minute that they knew that this was a ruling of Allah Azza wa Jalla in this particular issue, Sahabatu Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, straight away they were executed. How many places do we find in the Quran and also in the Sunnah where the Sahabas are informed of something and they're told this is how it is, and the same particular minute that they're told, they fully execute it straight away. The knowledge came, the implementation comes with it. وَلِذَلِكَ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives a person knowledge and He gives him time to implement it. If he doesn't implement, the Salaf used to say, Allah takes back that knowledge. If you don't implement it, it will go with it. No.
Subhanallah. I mean, the more we think about it, the more it's quite profound for all of us. Because all of us have some level of knowledge that we're probably not really implementing in our lives as much as we should do. What are some of the barriers, I guess? I mean, we're due to go to a break in a minute, but what are some of the barriers that stop us from seeking knowledge as well as implementing it?
It's the fact that we don't really understand the seriousness of not implementing the knowledge. The fact that we don't realize. I know there's one hadith, I believe this hadith summarizes the personal development of every individual. Whether you want to become a scholar, whether you want to implement the knowledge that you gained, there are 3 steps that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. If you follow that, you would be able to achieve just about everything, even if it's a worldly issue. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, احرص على ما ينفعك, strive to that which will benefit you. واستعن بالله, seek refuge, seek aid from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and help. Number 3 is ولا تعجز, don't give up. The first one, احرص على ما ينفعك, put all your efforts in whatever benefits you. The second is واستعن بالله, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for aid and help. You can't do this by yourself. You can't help yourself. You can't do much. The power and the strength is in whose hand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third one is وَلَا تَعْجَزْ, don't give up. Keep your head high up. Believe in Allah Azza wa Jalla.
Just hold you on that point and we'll continue inshallah after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, Ustadh AbdulRahman, before the break, maybe we can recap, because you're about to obviously explain a bit more about that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ gave us those 3 words of advice, or those 3 pieces of advice.
Naam. So the first one is ihras, strive. You have to put every effort in what you know is sa'adatu darain, the happiness of this world and the hereafter. Strive. You have to come with the effort. You have to come with the hard work. Look at our mother Maryam binti Imran, the mother of Isa ibn Maryam. Look what Allah told her. She's giving birth to Isa ibn Maryam. This is not an easy moment for her. Not only that, the father of this child, Allah didn't make a father for it. So then people are going to expect something of her. At this moment, Allah made her work for it. What did He say to her when she was giving birth? Allah says, وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِدْعِ النَّخْلَةِ. Maryam, push the tree yourself so the dates can come down for you. It's not that Allah is going to do everything for you. You need to strive. But after you've put your effort and your hard work in, وَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ, trust in Allah. Ask Him for help subhanahu wa ta'ala. Exert all your effort. If Allah left you to be and didn't help you and aid you, you can never achieve anything. Your own efforts are going to be harmful towards you. The third one is وَلَا تَعْجَزْ, don't give up. And when a person gives up, it comes from the following. When the value of what you're trying to attain lessens in your eyes, the means that you're trying to take becomes hard. If I'm trying to achieve a goal, the thing that I'm trying to attain, it reduces in my eyes. The value of it reduces in my eyes. Then the path I'm trying to take to attain it will what? Will become very hard for me. ولذلك ابن الجوزي رحمه الله, he said, ومن تكن العليا همة نفسه فكل الذي يلقى فيه محبب. Anyone whose aspiration is very high, every hardship in which he or she endures whilst they're trying to attain that goal becomes very, very, very joyful for them. A man loves a woman. The poet said, أقبل ذا الجدار وذا الجدار وما الجدار شفقنا قلبي ولكن لمن سكن دياري. There was a woman, a man loved. It was called Majnun Layla. He loved Layla so much.
Very, very famous story.
Naam. So Majnun Layla, he said, أقبل ذا الجدار. I kiss this wall and I kiss this wall. وما الجدار شفقنا قلبي. It's not the walls that my heart has, but it's once upon a time a person used to live behind these walls. What I mean by that is that a person will love everything around and the hardship that comes from when you're trying to attain something. You give up when that thing that you're trying to attain becomes less in your eyes.
So how can we then gain this urge or this love of knowledge? Because sometimes out of our own desires, out of the whisperings of the shaitan, we can find ourselves loving other things much more than loving knowledge, a reality of most of us today's life. So how can we try and fight that? How can we try and cultivate in us this love for knowledge? What are some steps that the viewers or all of us really can take?
The poet Abdullah ibn Mubarak, I think he said it. He said, إِذَا مَرِضْنَا تَدَاوَيْنَا بِذِكْرِهُمُ. He says, whenever we become sick and our heart, our aspiration reduces, تَدَاوَيْنَا بِذِكْرِهُمُ. We cure ourselves with their remembrance. Meaning the pious predecessors' biography. Honestly, when you read the story of Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Tawus ibn Kaysan, Mujahid ibn Jabrin, Abu Aliyat al-Rayahi, Urwat ibn Zubair, and the likes of these men, the Fuqaha al-Sab'ah, the big jurists of Medina, Malik ibn Anas, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa Nu'man ibn Thabit, Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal, Sufyan al-Thawri, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Yahya ibn Ma'in, Ali ibn al-Madini. These men, when you read their lives and you go over it and you look at these people who were born 9 months. And Allah said in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. You all came out of your mother's womb not knowing anything. How did they make it? How did they get through to it? This will increase your aspiration and it will make you get up and really think, subhanallah, I can do it. What's stopping me? For example, if somebody goes to Sir Alam al-Nubala مثلا and reads the biography of Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi rahimahullah, that itself, it will amaze you. He said, we used to travel for months and our traveling led to us urinate blood. So the heat that got to us, and we're now in this country, Sharjah, UAE, specifically Sharjah, and what you find is that if we walked outside right now for 5 minutes, what would happen to us? I have to make sure the car's on in advance, the air conditioner has to be on, but they were walking for miles and days and months in that heat without stopping.
We know stories, maybe you can remind me of the individual, but from those of the past where they wanted to check one specific hadith and they traveled from, for example, from Mecca or Medina all the way to Syria just to check the authenticity or the isnad of a particular hadith.
شعبة بن حجاج أبو بسطام العتكي رحمه الله.
For one hadith, not even 20 hadith or a whole book of hadith. He's just going to check before he can state that this hadith is authentic, etc. Subhanallah.
Abdullah al-Ansari rahimahullah was a Sahabi Jalil. He came to I think Abu Darda or Abdullah ibn Abbas, I think one of the companions he came to, and he asked him, I said, did you hear this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ? Just to verify, did he say that to you? Hakada. Some of them, they came to the burial of the person that they wanted to take the hadith from, and they paid the janazah on them. Some of the scholars, they were looking for a hadith to verify it, and they left their town and they were away from their country and their city for a year, and guess what? The hadith brought them back to the city that they came from. So So they've done a round trip, and they were told that the hadith originated from the town that you were from originally. So these people, حقيقة, when you read their biography and you look at how they were, you remember the statement of Abu al-Ala, رحمه الله, ما نحن في من مضى إلا كبخل في أصول نخل طوالة. That these people are truly like what they were like and how they were. I think that would definitely help a person gain knowledge and implement knowledge.
I think also it's important to mention as well is, which we sometimes forget about, is also this tazkiyat an-nafs, this purification of the soul, and we're not referring that into strange circles of dhikr where you say Allah's name over and over again. We're talking about the real tazkiyat an-nafs, and you've already mentioned, which we know the Prophet ﷺ did, his Sahaba, the 4 Imams, etc., which was, you've mentioned the fact of memorizing the Quran, reading the Quran, and also something that we tend to forget about. We remember, obviously, sometimes to do the sunnah prayers before and after the various 5 prayers, but there's also something we often forget, is the importance of the adhkar that we do in the morning and the evening. These are very good to purify the soul, very good to seek Allah's help in your daily life, to be, we have supplications, du'as that ask us to be of those who don't oppress, those who don't commit sins against people. We have so many beneficial that we should be reading every day and every night that inshallah will help us to get the help from Allah to be better individuals, but at the same time will purify our hearts, because as we know, and we've always mentioned this in so many shows, we know that there's so many statements of the fact that the heart, like Ibn al-Qayyim said, and we've mentioned this in so many shows, but it's such an important thing to make you realize that he mentioned that just as you have silver in your house that gets a bit grimy, if you just leave it on the shelf, dusty and grimy, if you don't polish it, it's not a nice piece of shiny silverware.
It's true.
He said likewise is the heart.
That's true.
And you have to polish it by making istighfar and remembering Allah, by making adhkar. So this is obviously a way that if we have cleaner hearts and purer hearts, then naturally we will have more love to do acts of worship, reading the Quran, seeking knowledge. If our hearts are the opposite, we'll just let them get dirtier. We're not making a repentance to Allah. We're not remembering Allah. As we know, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he'd say more than 100 times for Allah's forgiveness, and he didn't need to. So if it was him who didn't need to, ﷺ, what about us?
That's true.
So this is definitely, I think, a barrier that stops people from being committed, is the hard hearts, or they haven't made enough tazkiyah, some purification of their own self, really.
That's true. I mean, wallahi, this reality is, you realize this when you go and visit scholars. When you just see a scholar who, while he's sitting down without, just doing dhikr and remembering Allah, how honest they are, truthful they are, how they pray Qiyamul Layl when you're with them, how they are fasting every Mondays and Thursdays, things that you would read but just overlook. You realize they don't. ولذلك Imam Ibn Taymiyyah رحمه الله تعالى, we know his knowledge and how he was like and what he knew and what he understood. Like, do we really know how his heart was and how he used to purify his heart? He was the one that when it came to a mas'ala that he didn't understand, he wanted to understand this issue and he couldn't understand it. They said he would roll around on the earth. And then he would get up and he would say, Ya mu'allima Dawood allimni wa ya mufahima Sulaiman fahimni. The one who taught Dawood, teach me. And the one who made Sulaiman understand, allow me to understand. Humbling himself in that regard. Ibn al-Qayyim said, rahimahullah, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, since the day, or when he came across the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, that nothing prevents a person from entering Jannah after reading Ayatul Kursi, after every salah, the only thing that prevents that person from entering Jannah is death. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, ever since that time, he would read Ayatul Kursi dubura kulli salah, the ending of every prayer. How many of us actually read it? The Prophet just told you that you will enter Jannah, and the only thing that's preventing you from Jannah is what? Death. As soon as you die, because you used to read Ayatul Kursi after every prayer, you enter Jannah. How many of us that know this hadith but choose not to implement it? That's the difference between the scholars before and us. They knew something, they would do it. They would implement it. They would stick by it.
It reminded me, even simple things, again, that make a difference to someone, inshallah, for purifying themselves, and we don't want to make, obviously today's episode is about knowledge, but the connection there is that just little things that we tend not to do anymore, like when we finish the salah, we know the hadith that as long as the person stays in the same place and he doesn't move or speak, that
he's in a prayer.
And the angels will be asking for his forgiveness just by staying and doing the adhkar. How many of us now we say we'll do it in the car, or we go straight to our phone to check WhatsApp, and we don't spend time for things like that? And unfortunately, we've pretty much come to the end of today's episode. So may Allah reward you for coming on, and inshallah we'll see you in future episodes. And also for the viewers, we've had a very good introduction, I'd say, or even a bit more than an introduction, on the importance of seeking knowledge, why we should seek knowledge, what types of knowledge we should seek. If you're watching the show now and you find yourself delving into deep issues that you don't really understand anyway, but you're just following the crowd, but you realize, I don't know the categories of water, I don't know what are the obligatory parts of the prayer and what are the pillars, and which one do I have to make 2 sujood at the end of my prayer and it's okay, and which one do I have to repeat my whole rak'ah or my whole prayer again. So if you know you're in this, we've covered in this episode, focus on what is wajib upon you, that if you were to die now, you'll be asked about your worship, your prayer, your tahara, inshallah. And until next time, inshallah, same time, same place, bi'idhnillah, I leave you as always with the greetings of Islam, the greetings of peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.